Coach Simpson, it is great to finally meet you, man. How are you this week?
Man, I'm good, and thanks for having me on. I really like what you're trying to do, and so I'm glad to be on.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate it. I know you're right in the middle of your season, and so I know you guys are busy. So, Coach Simpson, you're the head football coach at Southside in Batesville, and I think I saw you guys are 4-0 to start the season. Is that right?
Yeah, we've had a good start to the season, and when you have good kids, that tends to happen. We've got a pretty
Yeah.
good group this year.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. We got to talk for a little bit last week to get introduced before jumping on here. And I'm familiar with Southside, family in Batesville. Started talking to some friends about you as well. We were joking, we were like, Southside wasn't known to be a very good football program for a long time. But when I brought your name up to my friends who were from the area, they were like, yeah, Coach Simpson's turned things around there at Southside. They're pretty good.
Yeah, it's been fun for sure, man. We moved here in 2011, and like you said, they had only had football a couple of years. So if you're from this area, they were new to football, and
Yeah.
when you're new, you're usually not good. And luckily for us, we were able to. It took a while. It wasn't right off the bat, but about 2016, we kind of turned the corner, and then now it's been just trying to get a little bit better every year.
Yeah, yeah. Well, sounds like y'all are finding some consistency in doing that and building a good culture there. And we were talking about, before we jumped on here, Arkansas. I was like, man, they need some culture change over there right now.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I feel so bad for the coach. As a coach, you always kind of want to side with the coach, and if they just hold on to the football, they're 4-0 right now. So that's tough.
Yeah, yeah. Even as a former player myself, he's one that I just you want to be see him be successful, and you see how close they are to winning in just one little play here or there, effort, one play here or there. You're like, man, the game changes. And then they're 4-0 and we're on top of the world. But just those little details, they just eat you up. And I don't even play anymore, but I'm sitting there on the couch like, oh my gosh, come on.
Yeah, it comes
But
down. I mean, last year we won 13, and I think 5 of them were a touchdown or less. And so when you have kids that kind of respond well in those moments, and sometimes you have teams where those kids struggle in those moments, and
yeah,
unfortunately for the Razorbacks, that might be where they are right now.
yeah. And it's truly a game of inches in a game of 4 or 5 plays at the end of the day when you're looking back that makes the difference. But no, Coach Simpson, it's a pleasure to have you on here. And I'll tell you, you're the first head football coach we've had on the Books4Guys podcast. So I, again, really appreciate it. And I think you said your wife mailed these to me, but I've got 7 of your books here and was going to kind of show them up. And then you've got a website, but find a way. Uh, we've got team themes, one play, many ways, coaching football like a basketball coach, training athletes beyond the game. I mean, where where do you find time to write this many books?
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy story. I just wanted to coach football, and then in around maybe 2012 even, I started kind of just putting some notes in a document. And then we weren't very good at Southside. You don't write books when you're not winning. That's just not how that works. You gotta kinda wait till things hopefully turn around, and so started
Yeah,
kinda getting a little success in the late, 2018, 17, 19, and so 2019, we put out the first book. It took me years, to finish the first one, and it was probably the worst one I've written. It sold the most copies, but that might just because it
yeah,
was the first one.
yeah,
But when I wrote that one and then COVID hit. So when COVID hit, all of a sudden, everybody has time now, and,
yeah,
that one did really well. A lot of people enjoyed the book and wanted more, and so kinda opened the door to write a few more things, and so now I'm doing about probably about 1 or 2 a year of what I call real book. I also produce, like, materials for coaches. Those aren't real books. They're playbooks or workbooks. They're important, but, like, the books you've got, I call those real books, like, where it
yeah.
takes time to write and chapters and all that. So we've been doing about 1 a year. Usually I'll just write mainly during the off season. I don't have a lot of time during the season, but I'll write during the off season, and I've got 4 or 5 in the works at all times. And whatever inspiration strikes, I'll just go right on that one. I don't hunt, I don't fish, and in Arkansas, it gets cold, so there's a lot of
Yeah.
time where I'm inside, you know, doing whatever, and so it's been a neat deal, and you mentioned my wife, she does a really good job of kinda making it look better, probably than I would make it. It's a Word document that we kinda turn into a book, and she does a lot of help with that.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. Yeah, I was wondering if she helped you out a lot on some of this stuff because I mean, you do a lot of different things. You're providing coaching material for other coaches, teaching material, how to be a successful coach. You've got the defense, the offense. You got everything broken down to where guys can be successful coordinators. Um, and a lot of coaches don't do that. They coach ball. They're focused on ball. A lot of them, maybe for right or wrong, they're a little skeptical to share their secrets with other coaches. I played for a few where they were a little, if somebody was walking around that they didn't know, it was like, hey, get them out of here. but but you're very open with teaching, coaching your players, but then teaching other coaches how to be successful and how to run a program and such. When did you, I guess, kind of what led to that passion of yours? You said you always wanted to coach ball, but what led you to want to help others come up along the way, that are interested as well?
Sure. When I first got into coaching, it was all about the players, and it still is all about the players. But as I've gotten older, I would go to try to get better myself, professional development or coaching clinics, and I would start to kind of connect with people doing these things. And I knew it helped me a ton as a young coach. And so I knew at some point, when I'm not young anymore, then I wanted to kind of give back into that world, and didn't really know how to do that. And then started kind of putting materials out there, and when you put one out there, you're like, well, this is fun to do. It's just kind of a let's see what happens. And all of a sudden, a lot of people got it. And so when, okay, this is actually, and people would write me and say, this really helped. What do you think about this? And they would ask questions about scheme, offense or defense, or whatever it might be, or being a head coach. And so most of the books I've written are generally from questions I've gotten from other coaches that spurred something on.
Yeah.
And then from there, try to put something out. And then now we're at the point my wife and I get to travel and we do clinics. So we actually
Yeah.
get to do events with coaches and work with them. And it's become a passion of mine as I've gotten older we want to see our game continue. And like you said, there are coaches that are a little skeptical that I'm coaching right now and helping other coaches. Isn't that a conflict of interest? My thoughts have always been the best chef in the world can give me the ingredients to make whatever they want. There's still a lot of art form and how that has to go about. And so you watch TV, you're going to see a lot of good plays. Like you're going to
Yeah.
see a lot of good plays. You still have to know how to put all that stuff together. And so trying to kind of work with the next generation of coaches to teach them that stuff. And so been a lot of fun, a great journey, and my wife and I really have enjoyed doing it together.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, the word that's coming to my head right now is execution because yeah, I can look at a picture in a cookbook and try to make it myself, but man, I can't execute that thing for nothing. But same with football. You still defense still has to stop the offense. Offense still has to score on the defense. You can even know what's coming. And a lot of times you still can't stop it unless you do your job and get everybody doing the same thing. So yeah, it's I think some people are a little more paranoid than they need to be, but it's no, that's interesting. How many coaching clinics do you think you do a year now? I mean, do you host the coaches or do you go to them?
Kind of both. We started doing one or two back in 21 or 20. I can't remember the first year we did it. Had 300 coaches show up to Batesville, Arkansas, and I went, my goodness gracious, they were driving from everywhere. And so said, okay, well, maybe we can do some regional, like go to
Yeah,
different kind of regions because some guys obviously can't drive to Arkansas.
yeah.
So we upped it to maybe 5 the next year, and then last year, I think we did 9. So
Wow.
we do one in the Northwest, we do one in the Southwest, one in the Southeast, kinda go all over, and usually
Yeah,
about 100 to 200 coaches will come attend, and they're very specific to the type of offense we run, so it's kind of a unique niche,
yeah.
but it's really, really fun. Then my wife and I actually do a, coach and family cruise clinic, which is very outside the box.
Oh,
That one's not very scheme. We talk
yeah,
football,
yeah,
but, the wives kinda have their sessions, she does.
yeah,
I organize the guys' sessions, and of course, you're on a cruise ship, so a
yeah.
lot of good things with that.
Yeah. Man, you're doing things that like major business leaders and major corporations do. I'm here in Nashville, Dave Ramsey, they do a big like corporate cruise event. I've heard of other like exec coaches doing some of this stuff, but you're kind of implementing the relationships of how to run businesses and football. I mean, you're bringing all this together and doing things that, I mean, as a high school football coach, not many other coaches are doing across the country at all. Um, I'm sure that just that alone probably keeps you driven to continue doing some of this because it sounds like there's a real hunger for that. Just again, it's so different. I've never heard of a coaching cruise, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, it's different for sure, and last year we had 50 coaches show up, and man, there was guys from California, there were guys from New York, and really cool to kinda connect, and that's the one thing that's new in the coaching world, in the last 20 years with the internet and with
Yeah,
online resources being available is the ability to connect with guys
yeah,
you never would have connected with before, and so, trying to kinda take advantage of that and share knowledge back and forth and make good relationships. Some of them I consider them good friends. They live in California or they live in Texas, and we'll text and call and talk just because we connected on one of those events. And so it's been really, really neat. It didn't intentionally start out as a business. It's kind of turned into that.
yeah.
The original idea was just, hey, let's help people and see what happens.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, and I've had your website pulled up and just some of the stuff you offer, just, monthly membership to get, information and tips and stuff like that. I mean, that's incredible. And I'm gonna kind of lead this into the book segment, but as far as, finishing up on the coaching clinics, you said you attended a lot as you were a young coach to go learn and do some things differently and get better yourself. Who were some, or where did you go, and who were some of the coaches that you learned the most from as you were kind of going through that stage of growth?
Yeah, yeah. Like every young coach, I would always go to when I have a Nick Saban or I get to hear Urban Meyer talk, and of course, those guys you learn a lot from. But when I started learning quickly, I would go to like the Glazier. They have a lot of really good clinics you can go to, and so I'd go to their clinics. They had a big variety, and I started learning. Okay, I'm learning more hearing a high school coach talk because I can relate to that guy. Like
Yeah,
Nick Saban's great, but I don't have those kids. I don't have those resources, and so to me, Gus Malzahn's been a good inspiration, as far as schematically. I've heard him talk. I've watched his stuff. Impressive, but I'm dealing with normal high school kids, and so when I would go to these clinics, I would go, "Okay, man, these guys that are high school coaches, I can actually take some of what they're doing and actually use it."
yeah,
So that's kinda what we've modeled our clinics off of is we only have high school speakers as myself or guys that are running similar things with
yeah.
similar players, and I think that resonates really well with other high school coaches.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's cool to hear your approach on that. Cause yeah, while it's cool and you do take some things away from those coaches who are having success at a high level, it doesn't necessarily translate to something you can implement with your program and your players, just a different set of circumstances, just different in a lot of ways. But if you want it to be beneficial and for coaches to actually be able to use what you're saying, that approach seems to make a lot of sense.
Well, let's
Yeah.
hope. I mean, that's the hope. You're about to talk about books here, but it'd be like if I went to a book clinic and heard like John Grisham, like that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of his.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't help me very much writing my books, so it's
Yeah.
trying to, find guys that can relate to you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. Well, you always been, again, Books for Guys, the purpose of this is to encourage young men to read more, pick up a book, and if a player, high school kid wants to be a coach one day, your books are probably something he could read and start leaning into early on. And they may not know these books are available, So our purpose is to get those out there to young guys, but and kind of to make reading the cool thing to do if you want to learn how to do something. Guarantee you can find the answer in a book somewhere. But have you always growing up, you went to Greenwood, I believe, is where you went to high school, went to Harding. As a young guy, have you always enjoyed reading, or was that something that kind of came along later, for you, like a lot of guys. I know it did for me, but
Yeah, no, I when I was young, unless it was something to do with sports, like maybe a Sports Illustrated or some kind of article on my team I was trying to follow, I didn't read very much. My mom kind of would force me to read, so I read the normal, like the Chronicles of Narnia and like that kind of
yeah,
stuff as a kid. But reading was not something I would do for pleasure, until I started getting a little bit older. And then John Grisham, I kind of mentioned him. I've read every book that he's written. So I want to read for just for pleasure. That's the stuff I've read. And then, I don't know the business world real well. So now I'm reading a book. Some guy writes click funnels or whatever he's trying to do. I don't know how all that works. So I'm
yeah,
going to go get his book and read about that, and try to make sure I'm reading at least a little bit every day. I like historical type stuff too, so
yeah,
don't have a lot of time during the season, so I'm very limited, but during the off season, we travel a lot. Try to make sure I've got a book with me usually when we're traveling somewhere, and, now I read a whole lot like I write, kinda short segments. So if you read any of my books, they're short chapters meant to be read in 5, 10 minute blocks, and so that's kinda how I also read, is I
yeah,
read that way. I'll read a chapter here and put it down and come back to it, and so but it didn't come on until later in life, and so I think it's really cool you're trying to get younger guys
yeah,
doing this.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm the same as you. Growing up, I was the sports nerd, recording Monday Night Football because I had a bedtime, so I'd get home on Tuesday and finish it. In elementary school, my reading was definitely Sports Illustrated. My grandma got me subscribed, so I knew every Thursday I had a Sports Illustrated magazine coming in the mail. Um, but yeah, as I was in college, transferred schools, didn't know anybody. That's when I started reading. Was on the weekends. I wasn't playing or traveling as a red shirt, and that's when I was like, man, some of these books I wish I'd have read in high school and earlier than I am now, because they started having an impact on me in the way I thought and the way I was approaching life and just and a lot of them were sports books to start, learning about guys and you see success up here, but you don't know what they went through to get there. So you kind of start applying that of, hey, not everything's easy. Most things aren't. So you kind of shift your mindset a little bit. I think that's good for young guys to figure out too, is hey, you got to work at whatever you want to get to and what you want to accomplish. Um, but again, as I'm looking back as a high school kid, I would have loved to have read books like yours just about coaching and football, because that's all I was interested in. But that would have translated probably to reading more of those leadership business books you're talking about. Is it did for me. It translated into that just from starting at sports books. And so I think, again, trying to highlight folks like yourself, who you're a high school football coach, and people see football, 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 but you're spending time developing and reading and continually learning. And you're not just reading, you're writing books. So, maybe someone wants to do that at some point, write something they're interested in. And so I just think it's cool that as a football coach of a successful high school program, you are finding a way to also show like, hey, I'm writing books over here too. I'm not just on the field calling plays and doing that. You got a lot more to you than that, which I think is what we're trying to show these young guys.
Yeah, no, I remember reading, Tony Dungy's book. I've read that one. Bill
That's the
Walsh
one.
has put a book in it. I've read that, and those are great books. And Lou Holtz put a book out. I remember
Who
reading his, and he
hopes?
listed his 99 goals. And these are
Yeah,
all great books to read, and they're out there. But there really weren't any books, like you said, for high school coaches. Like where,
yeah,
okay, I want to be a high school coach, and I think if there's probably, I'm hoping the books would help somebody who is going to be maybe a basketball coach. I don't Not in that world, but hopefully they would kind of work together. But
yeah,
so the idea was to put out some stuff here that a guy can take and maybe apply and move forward. And man, it's therapy. Here's the irony. In 2019, we put out the first book that we put out, and then we started putting out a bunch of books around 2021. So you might know our history a little bit. Not very good. 2016, we got decent. Like we got to where, okay, we're making the playoffs when people didn't think that would ever happen. So I was nervous. You start putting out books, there's a
yeah.
massive target. There's a massive target on your back. We've put out more books and done more clinics in the last 3 years than we've ever done, and our record is, it's like 27 and 3, okay? what I've started learning is I've become a better coach as I've written. You know that the teacher always learns more than the student does. So as I've kind of put out materials and had to research my own thoughts, I
Yeah.
think it's made me better on the back end, and it's made our program better on the back end. So to me, while I know you're doing reading for guys, but I think it's also good therapy to write and put things down on paper. It kind of clears it up in your own mind and makes you better.
Yeah. No, I agree. And you hear everyone tell you all the time, take notes, take notes, take notes. Even, I've been in the business space for 10 years now post college, and everyone still says take notes, take notes, take notes, because it's another way to remember and yeah, build on what you think you know. Sometimes you forget sometimes, but having those notes reiterates what you're trying to remember to use moving forward. So yeah, I've talked to a lot of guys, the importance of writing to go along with reading, just as important. And so, again, just having someone like you preach that, I think goes a long way, because then people go, okay, well, Coach Simpson's doing it. I probably should do it too. Helping him, I need to do what he's doing. And so, um, well, man, I ask everybody this kind of to end the podcast. When you kind of mentioned what Tony Dungy's books, man, those were that. To be honest, that was kind of the turning point for me, kind of going from sports books to leadership books. Kind of that route. Quiet Strength was the first one I read of his, and I was like, man, okay, now I'm into this reading thing. If I can read stuff like this, but do you have a book that's had an impact on you personally or professionally that if someone asked you for a book recommendation, you would give them, or one that maybe you've read a couple times because it's spoken to you that much?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna give you the generic answer of the Bible, although I would say that's the book that I probably go back to the most and read,
Yeah,
because obviously there's good stuff there, but, I really would lean to that Lou Holtz book, man. I really thought it was
yeah,
extremely well done, it was well written, it felt like it was him who wrote it and not someone else writing about him, so I liked hearing kinda his thoughts where I think he literally wrote down 100 goals, and some of them were so simple, like, "I wanna be on TV," and I was like, "Man, you're allowed to do that? Like, you can write that down?" And so, big for me to see, okay, these guys are dreaming about goals, and I thought it was simple and easy to read. For my books, my hope is, if you're a 12-year-old and you pick up my book, you can go through the scheme and it makes sense.
yeah,
I've always kind of been a big believer in guys that they don't talk above your head, they don't write above your head, they write to where it's meant to be simple. I thought Lou did a good job in that book. I'm sure he had the guys help him write it. And then you mentioned Tony Dungy, his books are phenomenal as well.
yeah.
All of those are great books.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I like Lou Holt's book because I read it in the way Lou Holtz talks. So it was very
Me too.
easy to
Yep, me too.
I was like, I love this because he's got a unique way of talking, obviously, if you've heard him. And so yeah, I was a big same as you. Lou Holtz books, Tony Dungy, man, those are books I'll probably go back and read again at some point just because they were so good and good reminders to go back and read some of the stuff that they talk about. But no, Coach Simpson, man, thank you so much again for coming on here and doing this. And we'll get your books on the Books4Guys website. So if anybody's interested in ordering them, we'll get your website link put up there. I know, just for me, a lot of my former teammates follow Books4Guys, and some of those guys are in coaching at the high school level. And so actually, and that's, got a friend of mine referred you to me and said, you got to talk to Coach Simpson, man. This guy writes books. So I was like, all right, I got to talk to him. But man,
Well,
no,
man, I
again,
appreciate having me on, and
yeah,
I was gonna say anybody that, they're welcome to order the book, or if you got younger guys that are listening and your money's an issue, man, don't let that be an issue. Just shoot me an email and I'll take care of them.
yep, and your contacts info on there and all that. But no, Coach, good luck on the rest of your season. You guys have started well. I'll be following you guys the rest of this year, and then probably the rest of your career. Now that we've met, I'll be rooting you guys on, and maybe I'll make it to a game over there at some point too. So I'd love to do that.
Yes, sir, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thanks, Coach.